Sudan's army and the paramilitary rapid support forces have been added to a UN blacklist for killing and injuring children and attacking schools and hospitals. The RSF was listed for recruiting children and for rape and other forms of sexual violence against children. A UN report shows a staggering 480% increase in grave violations from 2022 to 2023. The report verified more than 30,000 crimes committed last year, including during the war in Gaza. The International Criminal Court's prosecutor wants witnesses to help with an investigation into allegations of war crimes in Sudan's Darfur region. Thousands have fled Fasher, the largest city in Darfur, as fighting intensifies between the army and the paramilitary rapid support forces. UNICEF says thousands of children are trapped in the middle of the increased fighting and they're not able to reach safety. Fierce fighting began in the area last month.
The evidence my office has collected to date seems to show credible, repeated, expanding, continuous allegations of attacks against the civilian population, in particular, attacks directed against camps for internally displaced persons. It seems to show the widespread, prevalent use of rape and other forms of sexual violence. It seems to disclose consistently the shelling of civilian areas, the looting of properties, and attacks against hospitals.
Al Jazeera's Heba reports from Khartoum.
The prosecutor for the International Criminal Court has appealed to those who have evidence of crimes that have been committed or are still being committed in the Darfur region to come forward with those evidence and present it to the court to help it with its ongoing investigation regarding war crimes and other crimes that are committed in the Darfur region. Now, the prosecutor made a special concerning note about Fasher, and that's the last city in the Darfur region that is under the control of the Sudanese army, which has been fighting the paramilitary rapid support forces since April last year. The prosecutor says that civilians have been targeted, rape has been used as a weapon of war, and that hospitals where those who have been injured in the fighting between the RSF and the Sudanese army in Fasher have been targeted as well. Now, civilians in the city of Fasher say that they're concerned that if the RSF continues its attacks, they will continue to be displaced. Over the past month, more than 130,000 people have been displaced from Fasher as a result of fighting between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces. The Humanitarian Research Lab at Yale University says that more than 30 ethnic Zaghawa communities have been burned to the ground by the paramilitary rapid support forces, and says that there is an imminent attack that is bound to happen by the RSF as it aims to take over the military garrison in the city of Fasher, which is being described right now as a kill box. We spoke to one person, a displaced person in the city of Fasher, who says that while he is quite happy that the International Criminal Court is looking into war crimes or other crimes that are taking place in the Darfur region, he also reminded us that this is not the first time the International Criminal Court is investigating crimes in the Darfur region. Since 2003, there have been war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide that have been committed according to the International Criminal Court itself. And this displaced person who we spoke to says that while he is happy that there are investigations taking place, he also reminded us that over the past 2 decades, nobody has been held to account for the crimes that have taken place and led to the displacement of more than 2 million and the death of about 300,000 people. He says that they've been waiting for 2 decades and no justice has been served. And this time, they are concerned that even if there is a process underway, justice may take years. Heba, Al Jazeera, Khartoum.
Okay, I want to give you a closer look at Fasher. It's the last stronghold of the Sudanese government in North Darfur, as Heba was just describing. The RSF has taken control of nearly all other main cities there. Local armed groups have broken months of neutrality, declaring allegiance with the Sudanese army, fearing that the state is going to fall completely into their hands. Fasher has also been a major supply route for aid, and the conflict there means relief is no longer being distributed and is making a dire humanitarian situation even worse. We're going to bring in Dalia Mohammed Abdelmaniam. She's a political commentator specializing in Sudan. She's joining us now from Cairo. Thank you so much for being with us. I want to ask you, first of all, about the fact that the armed forces of Sudan and the Paramilitary rapid support forces have been added to a blacklist. Do we have any indication of what that means?
First of all, thank you for having me. It highlights the fact that both sides are violating and committing crimes against the civilian population. And albeit the crimes committed by the RSF are more horrendous and more horrific than I've ever read or seen in my life, but it shows that maybe they're trying to show an even-handedness in responding to the war in Sudan. But we also have to say that the majority of the violations and the war crimes that have been committed have been done by the RSF. And it's not just in Fasher or in Darfur where they've been doing it. They have been committing their crimes throughout all the areas that they've controlled. They killed more than 200 civilians in a village in Jazeera state just last week. In Khartoum, women are in the areas that they still hold, like in Bahri, the women are held in servitude. Rape is rampant. There were reports of a disabled child being raped by the RSF, of a 70-year-old elderly lady being raped by the RSF. So the crimes of the RSF are horrendous, and I welcome the ICC's decision, but I think they also need to expand and look into the other areas of the country. It's not just Darfur that's suffering, it's the whole country that's under the control of the RSF that is suffering from the crimes of the RSF.
I want to ask you about this ICC investigation because the prosecutor is asking witnesses to come forward. Given the level of threat that there is in the country, as you've just been describing, do you think it's likely that people are going to be prepared to step forward?
The evidence is there. I mean, I see the reports, I see the videos, I read the testimonials. It's there. The fact that it's taken them more than a year to actually instigate this investigation is, in a way, laughable, even though it's not a laughing matter at all, because the crimes have been committed since day one, since war broke out on April 15th, 2023. And, they have testimonials, there's more than 10 million Sudanese displaced right now. That's a quarter of the population. Send out an investigating team, set up a fact-finding mission. The evidence is there. It doesn't need anyone to come forward and present it. It's there. It's available. Those in the refugee camps in Chad, the Sudanese who are displaced in Egypt, the ones in Ethiopia, everyone has a story. There is not one single Sudanese that does not have a story about the violations that have been committed against the people of Sudan. And so this call is welcomed, but I think a little bit more work is needed from the ICC.
I understand that you were in Sudan. You're now in Cairo. Can you talk to us about what it was that made you leave?
Well, the neighborhood that I lived in Khartoum, was one of the center points of the war, of the conflict between the two sides. We had RSF snipers in our neighborhood. Our house was hit by a missile, so it was no longer safe for us to stay. I mean, I never thought in my life that I would be forced to leave my home, my country, but we had to. And I'm fortunate enough that I was able to leave, and I was able to leave unharmed, and I was able to set up a base here in Egypt with my immediate family. But so many of us aren't that lucky. And
Daria Mohammed,
I didn't think the situation would get worse, but it has gotten worse.
Daria Mohammed, Abdulmaniam, I apologise for interrupting you. Thank you very much indeed for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.